This is Shanghai Tower, 2,073 feet, 128 floors, $2.4 billion. The second tallest building on Earth when it opened. At night from across the Huangpu River, entire bands of that tower went dark, floor after floor after floor. No lights, no tenants, no revenue. It won nearly every engineering award that exists. It was backed by one of the wealthiest city governments in the world, and it could not turn a profit. A building this expensive, this decorated, this government-backed, how does it end up $1.5 billion in debt? Who approved premium rents on space that was half unusable? Why did the city that funded it also become the reason corporations walked away? And where did that debt go, and who was supposed to answer for it?
Very serious water leak incident. Water leaked all the way from the 60th floor to the 9th floor. Shanghai's municipal government spent 14.8 billion yuan, but the structure was designed to last only 50 years.
The story starts in the early 1990s. Shanghai's Pudong district, the land east of the Huangpu River, was farmland and warehouses. Then came the economic reforms, and with them a master plan. Lu Jiazui would become China's answer to Wall Street. At the center of that plan sat 3 reserved plots set aside for 3 super-tall towers that would announce China's financial arrival to the world. The Jinmao Tower finished in 1999. The Shanghai World Financial Center opened in 2008. The third plot, the most important, waited 15 years for the tallest of them all. And here's the first entry in our file because it matters who builds a project like this.
Shanghai Tower is going to be truly a vertical city.
Shanghai Tower was not developed by a private firm betting its own money. It was built by a consortium of 3 state-owned developers. Shanghai Chengtu Corporation, the city's primary infrastructure investment vehicle. Shanghai Lujiazui Finance and Trade Zone Development, the state body controlling the Pudong Financial District. And Shanghai Construction Group, the municipal government's main builder. Every one of them owned entirely by the Shanghai municipal government. Jason Barr, an economics professor at Rutgers University in New Jersey who studies skyscraper markets, put it plainly at the time: China was not building a product. Implicit in the tower, he said, is that China's economic and political system is just as strong as Western-style capitalism. That quote is the clock. Remember it. As engineering, what they built is genuinely hard to argue with. Jun Xie, a Shanghai-born architect leading the team at Gensler, one of the largest architecture firms in the world, designed a tower that rotates 120 degrees from base to crown. Not for aesthetics, but physics. Shanghai sits in typhoon territory. That twist sheds wind loads, cutting the structural steel the project needed and saving a reported $58 million in materials. The building wears 2 layers of glass and outer skin wrapped around an inner one, creating buffer zones between the skins that insulate the tower the way a thermos holds temperature. Near the crown, 270 wind turbines power the building's exterior lighting. Rainwater gets captured and recycled. The elevators were at opening the fastest on the planet. The observation deck at 1,844 feet set a world record. In many office markets, LEED-certified towers can command a rent premium. That was the bet here. Premium engineering would justify premium pricing. Every box was checked. That was the plan. Here's what actually happened. The first signs of trouble. China had no national building code for structures exceeding 600 meters, not a slow approval process, an absent standard. The same government that approved the height had never written the safety rules for it. Shanghai Tower opened in 2016. Key permits, including fire safety approvals, delayed tenants from moving in until 2017. For a multinational corporation's real estate director, that created a simple problem: legal teams do not sign leases inside uncertainty. The fire authorities raising concerns and the city funding, the tower answered to the same Shanghai municipal government. Does the building have full fire certification? For over a year, the honest answer was not yet. No Fortune 500 general counsel on Earth signs a lease under those conditions. By mid-2017, only 60% of office space had been leased, and of those tenants, only 1 in 3 had actually moved in. A year into operation, the second tallest building on Earth had entire floors sitting empty, leased on paper, vacant in reality. The international firms, the tower was designed to attract the multinational banks and global corporations that fill towers in London and New York largely stayed away. The tenants who did sign were predominantly domestic Chinese companies. The city wrote the check. The city also held the permit. Nobody found that unusual. Then the budget numbers came in. The twist that beat the typhoons came with a cost the renderings never showed. The gap between the outer glass skin and the inner building combined with the curved floor geometry produced floor plates where only around half the area could be used efficiently. The other half sweeping curved voids between the window line and the workable office sat dead. Think of it like buying a house where half the rooms have no doors. The square footage is there. Much of it just cannot function. But commercial leases don't price on usable area alone. Tenants were being asked to pay premium tower rents on some of the most expensive floor plates in Asia for space that functioned at 50%. Sit with that number, half the usable space, full the asking price. Marshall Strabler, the chief architect at Gensler overseeing the project, pushed back on the criticism, publicly saying those raising the floor plate issue did not know what they were talking about.
I would say that the person who said that doesn't know what they're talking about.
The tenants who walked away disagreed. Annie Zhang, head of Shanghai office leasing at Jones Lang LaSalle, one of the world's largest commercial real estate services firms, and an official leasing agent for the tower, said it plainly to CNBC in 2017. With more and more skyscrapers in Shanghai, the vacancy will remain very high for some time. The feature that won the awards was billing for the space it wasted. Then the problem became visible. The upper floors were always reserved for the J Hotel, announced as the highest luxury hotel in the world, operated by Jinjiang International Hotels, one of China's largest state-owned hospitality groups. It didn't open for 5 years after the tower launched. Year after year, the summit of the second tallest building on the planet sat dark and unfinished. Then in July 2020, 4 years into operation, before the hotel ever welcomed a single guest, water began leaking inside the tower. Not a minor drip. Floor 60 down to floor 9, 51 floors. Employees on multiple levels came to work and opened umbrellas at their desks. Others used buckets. Videos spread across Chinese social media within hours.
Had a very serious water leak incident. Water leaked all the way from the 60th floor to the 9th floor. $2.11 billion on this mega project, but the structure was designed to last only 50 years.
Shanghai Tower's management posted on its official Weibo account, China's largest social media platform, that the cause was an equipment failure repaired immediately. The tower's owners disputed some of the footage circulating online as fake. For a building already carrying a reputation problem, the image of workers holding umbrellas inside a $2.4 billion landmark did exactly the damage anyone would expect. Compare that to 432 Park Avenue, a luxury residential tower in Manhattan. That building sold every unit. Then the pipes started leaking, the walls started cracking, and residents began filing lawsuits. Two of the most expensive towers built this century. 2 different countries. The same pattern of problems showing up after the money was already spent. And here's the part nobody wants to answer. Shanghai Tower opened into a softening commercial market. Vacancy rates across Shanghai were climbing as new supply flooded the district, more than 10 million square feet of competing real estate in the same superblock alone. The tower's response was to hold premium rents justified by its records and its LEED certification. The market's response was silence. The problem was that developers across Shanghai had delivered too much of it at the same time. Tenants had options, and most chose lower-cost alternatives, rather than paying a premium for height and prestige alone. By 2018, the South China Morning Post reported occupancy had reached only 80%, and global firms were still largely absent. The people running the leasing operation knew the market was broken before the losses were ever reported publicly. The International Monetary Fund, the Washington-based institution that monitors global financial stability, weighed in on the broader pattern pointing to China's construction sector as an example of a lack of competent commercial decision-making. With revenue trickling in and operating costs running at full scale, reported losses pushed the project more than $1.5 billion into debt, on top of the $2.4 billion it cost to build. No private developer answering to private shareholders survives that math. The only reason Shanghai Tower could absorb those losses is that the entities behind it were never subject to the market test, not the contractor, not the architect, the state-backed development model itself, which built a monument first and asked who would pay rent second. And all of it traces back to one decision. A $58 million win fix became a $1.5 billion debt problem. And it's happening again in a different city, with a different name and a longer price tag. The same logic is already being tested in Kuala Lumpur. Merdeka 118 at 227 feet is the building that just knocked Shanghai Tower out of the second tallest spot on Earth. It is owned by Permadalan National BHD, Malaysia's largest government-linked investment fund. It carries the same credentials: Public Capital Green certification, Skyline first purpose. Office occupancy sits at roughly 70%. The prime office vacancy rate across Kuala Lumpur is 24.6%, among the highest in Asia, according to Knight Frank, a global real estate consultancy, in its Q1 2025 Asia Pacific report. Kuala Lumpur already has an estimated 30 million square feet of empty office space. That is 10 times the total floor area of Merdeka 118. The bet is identical. The market is softer. You just don't know how this one ends yet. This wasn't a construction failure. The tower stands. It twists. It survives typhoons. It was a system failure, one that rewarded prestige and asked who would pay rent second. The state-backed development model that built Shanghai Tower first and asked who would fill it second has never been restructured. Here is where the file splits into two readings. One side says this was always a national infrastructure project, a monument the way a museum or a public park loses money by design, and the city got exactly what it paid for, a symbol that works. The other side says a symbol that cost $2.4 billion to build and later carried more than $1.5 billion in reported debt is not a monument. It's a blank check signed by people who never had to cash it themselves. Nobody who approved the height, the floor plate design, or the pricing strategy has been publicly asked to account for the gap. That is not an engineering question. That is a governance question. And nobody who made this decision is being asked to justify it. The project you just watched took years to fail publicly. The next one on this channel took longer and cost more. Subscribe, because by the time it makes the news, it's already too late. Comments are open. Name your city.